Hello and welcome to the show today. I am your host and founder of Heaven to Earth, Susan Fleming, business alignment therapist, equipping kingdom leadership to multiply life without burnout. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Well, I am so excited to welcome today's guest, Dr. Kathrine McAleese. Dr. Kathrine is a former queen of burnout who now helps other female coaches, consultants, and service business owners to enjoy success at a hustle-free, God-designed pace. I'm sure y'all can already see why her and I have connected. She's got a background, varying from performing arts to theology to marriage and family therapy and sociology. She's well equipped to help you look at the bigger picture so that you can build a whole life designed around who the Lord created you to be. Her business is Mind to Win, which started 12 years ago, working with dog agility competitors on their mindset. So not only has she helped clients achieve world championship level successes, many of those clients also became more successful professionally, and this led her to develop Bigger, Bolder, Braver with its business-focused, self-paced courses, small group mastermind, and my favorite, the Bigger, Bolder, Braver podcast, which I absolutely love. Y'all check that out. But she's also got her first book coming out in November, which I am eagerly anticipating, as well as her retreats that will be coming next year. I'm so excited to have you, Kathrine. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
You are welcome. And I am eager to get into this conversation as I was, really praying over who to invite into this series. You were one of the first people that came to mind. And not just because you're an amazing leader and woman of God, but because your heart is just, I'm going to get emotional. Your heart is just so, I see so much of the Father's heart in you. And that's really what I want to just try to convey to people today, and that's one of the things that anytime I'm in front of people, I want them to see the Father and not see me. And I think you have that same heart. And so I'm really excited to dive into kind of what your journey has been. And just go deeper on some questions that I have.
Excellent. Let's go.
All right. So let's set the scene for the viewers. Take us back to 12-year-old Kathrine. What are you doing? What do you like? What are you into?
Okay, so I would be in Northern Ireland and I was dancing all the hours that God sent. I wore through our living room carpet. That's how I processed my teenage years, was I put on music that fitted my mood and I choreographed whatever style fitted the mood and the music, and I made up my own dances for competing. And if I wasn't dancing, I was singing and acting. Like, basically, I was looking for any opportunity to be on a stage, like any. It just lit me up, made me happy. That was that was my thing, yeah, I grew up sort of in the outskirts of Belfast. It was during the Troubles, so it was an interesting time to be growing up in Northern Ireland, of all places. But yeah, basically living for a stage, living for the next opportunity to have bright lights on me and to have an audience in the palm of my hand,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so interesting to me because I don't see you as that person today. I really don't see you like looking for attention. You know what I mean?
You know what? It's funny. It was never about, well, it was kind of the attention, but there is something so delicious, and I'm still hurt. Like, don't get me wrong. This is why I love lives and, this sort of thing. It feels easy because there is attention attached. It's not, it's a strange thing because it's not like a selfish, like, focus on me, look at me, look at me. Like, that's not it. But there's something incredibly exhilarating about standing in the wings and having that moment of absolute blankness, right? Where, you know, you're about to go out and perform this scene and you have no words, none left in your brain. Like, I love that feeling. Like, I loved that when I was growing up in plays, you know, I'd be standing in the wings and there was that moment, like just before you would tip over the edge to, you know, launch yourself into the wide blue yonder. And it was always fine, you know, so learning that from an early age that I could wing it and it would be fine. You know, the dancing I choreographed from I was like 7 or 8 year old anyway, and I got bored quickly. So I was forever going, oh, I don't feel like that costume today. And my mom made all my costumes. So, you know, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to wear this costume today and I'm going to use this piece of music today. And I'd cut the pieces of music together, you know, with tapes, you know, back in the day. But I was quite adept with cutting things together. And I would get on stage with no sense of what I was going to do and just do it. And that there was something, such a blessing in that of, you know, I was able to play, you know, it wasn't high stakes. I was able to play, but that has stood me in such good stead since, you know, speaking engagements, you know, all these times where I've had to show up and like, there's a, you know, pressure to perform. And you know what, I'd already had the opportunity, like God had already given me plenty of opportunities to say, it doesn't matter if your brain goes blank, it's in there. It'll come out when it needs to come out. You don't consciously need to have it all straight. You've done the work. It's in there. It's going to come out, you know? So what a blessing. So yeah, fine. I'm not, you know, running around the stage these days for the most part. But all of those experiences, God knew I needed those. Uber cool to think, my gosh, Lord, you were planning this. When I was just, you know, dancing around doing something I loved, you were also equipping me and preparing me for a completely different stage of life that I had no concept was going to happen, was going to even be possible. I mean, we didn't have Zoom then, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but she's still in there. Don't be fooled. She's still in there.
But I love, oh, there's so much in that I could divert on. I love how not only does he use all of it, right, but also how we are such multifaceted beings.
Yeah.
And so many people want to peg you into, you know, I'm a creative, or I'm, you know, more logical, or I'm this or that or whatever. And we're like, no, we're all the things. And that just, you know, that just shows right there that creative builder side of you that then goes into business.
Yep.
And how that, you know, that helps you in every area of your life.
Yeah.
He puts all the pieces together.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that. So at what point do you feel like you kind of caught that vision of who God was calling you to serve?
So here's the thing that I know might be a bit controversial for some people. I really respect people who are like, this is who I'm called to serve. And that doesn't change. That's them. That's consistent. That's in their heart. And, you know, that's their path for 50, 70 years. Amazing. Absolute respect. That is not me. So when I came across this question, I was like, oh man, this is a giggle, because, you know, God is basically, you know, they say that like God get you to take the next step, right? Some people seem to have the spotlight and they know, or the floodlight, whichever, and they know like, this is where I'm going. And it's very clear, and it's just step. God with me has been more like, okay, do this now. You don't worry about the rest. Just do this, right? And I'll tell you when it's time to move on. And the, you know, moving from like, until I was about 14, I always said I was never going to be a professional, you know, dancer or anything like that, because I was ridiculous. I mean, what a dreadful way to make a living. I love doing it, but it was not at all what I was going to do. Like, I was going to do something far more sensible, you know. And then just over the space of a weekend, God moved my heart. It was like, no, go do that. So 180, okay. And everything then was, all right, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. End of story. So and that is something that he put in me, is that if I believe God's in it, I'll go after it. My vision might be a bit blurry, but once it gets clear, stand back, do not get in the way. You will get run over, and so that was the first time. And then, later when I came back to Northern Ireland, I was at a really, really low ebb. And I literally, I mean, this might feel a bit weird for some people, but I had a single bed. I'd been really down for a long time, for period of time, really struggling to function, and I was desperately trying to get back into normal life. And I literally felt someone push me out of bed and say, go phone the lady that I needed to speak to at the Bible college. I was only going to speak to her about an evening class once a week to just get me back into civilization. By the time I'd had a conversation with her, dangerous lady, I had come away with the plan for a year of college, an A level, so that I could access a degree course, which I'd have to get an A grade in, by the way, in that 1 year. They're usually done over 2 years. And then a 3-year degree. That's what happened, right? And then as I was going through Bible college, all these people kept like vomiting all their stuff on me, and I'm like, God, I don't know how to deal with it. Like, I just want to not be a liability, and he kind of made it clear, at some point you're going to train as a therapist. Well, I was thinking, therapists are like grown-ups, do you know what I mean? Way more than I am. I don't wear a long flowing skirt, I don't have gray hair and a penchant for cardigans and pearls. So I figured like it was 40, 50 years down, like when I was proper grown-up. No. Like the whole way along, God has sort of given me like 5 minutes before I'm due to do something. Right. You've just enough time, off you go. That's where you're going next. So that's what happened with going to Seattle for graduate school in marriage and family therapy. Like I didn't even know that was a thing until I'd taken a trip to Seattle to see a friend, and just so happened to be helping him move in at SPU, and just so happened to walk through the marriage and family therapy building and see, just so happened to see the brochure for this thing that was like nothing I knew about, but what I had actually been, thinking this would be what it would have to be for it to make sense to me. And the whole way along, it's like God just sort of hits me with a 2x4. All right, okay, so now I'm pointing a different direction, and I just keep going that direction until he goes, and now we'll change direction, and I know that's not, I realize it was a long-winded answer, but I know for a lot of people, this question of purpose, it feels like it should be this one cohesive thing. It's not necessarily. For some people it is, absolute respect. But for some of us, God's like, nah, you don't have the boredom threshold for that. I'm going to keep you moving. You're
Yes.
you're going to need equipped with different skills and different experiences. And I'm going to take you to different populations and put you in different environments, so that you can grow, have some of your edges knocked off, let's be clear. And, and the Lord just uses all of that. Like nothing is wasted. But that purpose, for me at least, has always been, where am I now? And where, when God dries up the stream, like that's one of the ways, like if the stream dries up, it's kind of a subtle hint, move. Other times it's clear, you've had this on your heart. I'm telling you the time is now. I'm telling you this is where you're going. Don't worry about the how. That's not your business. That's not your pay grade to worry about. Just you get on with the step in, and I'll take care of the rest. And he does. Simple. I mean, clearly not that simple in our humanness, but it can be, and I'm so grateful that God works, like he wired us, he knows us, and he purposes us in alignment with that, not, headbutting against who we are. If your sense of purpose is or what you think should be your purpose is headbutting against who he made you. And I'm, I'm not talking about discipline. I'm talking about like the things that light you up, the what he put in you, to come out of you and bless others. Like if those things are in opposition, Houston, we have a problem,
Yeah. And so much of what I'm hearing you say is addressing the shoulds
Oh
and
gosh,
the
yeah.
expectations.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really marketable, especially for us in the online business space in particular. But you know, the way things are marketed generally now, things get so boxed up, exactly like you were saying. You know, it's like, this is how it should be done. These are the paths that you should walk. These are the things that you should have, and all of that. And I'm like, well, that's great, but you know, if you're not a white male, if you're not, dare I say it, a white male in America, you know, you immediately don't have the profile of a lot of the gurus, which means there are differences in your life to theirs just from the get-go. And that's before we throw in some privilege and prejudice and da 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 da. We're not all moving forward the same way. We're not supposed to. You know, you look at any of the prophets, they all did things differently.
Mm.
You look at the disciples, for crying out loud, what a motley crew there. You know,
Absolutely.
there's so, God loves variety.
I know some, some of the things that we should just be like, duh, are the hardest things for us to get past.
Totally. And like, you know, and I'm not criticizing any of us for when we get sidetracked on that, because there's not that many, certainly in my experience, big Christian programs that are actually run by kingdom principles. Even if the person running a program is Christian, it's not necessarily being run in any different way or teaching any different things than, you know, any other program that's not faith-based. And that being the case, is it any wonder that we sort of get a bit smudgy about the God bit? You know, when that's not what we're thinking through and going, all right, here's what's humanly possible, but here's where the fun stuff happens, you know?
Yeah.
When we get to the end of the humanness, this is where the real fun begins, you know? Like, so that's
Yeah, but I think there's even let's touch on for a second here, even your own expectations.
Oh, totally.
Because you said, of course, I'm going to do I don't remember if you said responsible thing or logical thing. Like, you had your own expectation of, well, even of what a therapist looks like. You're like, I was
totally
not that.
Yeah. And you know what, the funniest thing, when I went for the interview day, because it was a whole day, so I flew out to Seattle from Northern Ireland for this one interview day. I was jet lagged to heck and back. It was pretty brutal. It was like, oh my gosh. But it was so funny when we all piled in before they started the interview rotations. There was two people that were in that room. One, the first person I saw was this incredibly glamorous woman who had like wedge sandals on and bright red toenails and the most incredible manicure. She was fabulous. And it was like, interesting. Okay, I now have a new image of what it can look like to be a therapist. And I wouldn't mind looking like her when I grow up, you know? And then the other one was this guy, head of the school, no less, head of the school, who had done all manner of research in Northern Ireland and knew my part of the world incredibly well and loved it. So, you know, he had this sort of moment with me, you know, being all excited that I was there and you know, all about Northern Ireland. And I kind of felt a bit awkward for everybody else in the room because I'm like, sorry to take all the air from the room here, people, but I'm feeling quite good right now. You know, so it was nice. But that lady with the wedge sandals and the bright red toenails was like, okay, all right, Lord, I get it. It's fine. I can do this.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So one of the things, there are so many things I love about you, but one of the things I really value and see in you is the way that you show up so authentically. Like, I don't feel like there's any pretense with you at all. Like, what you see is what you get. And I love that. But how have you been able to really step into being that person, being yourself, and connecting authentically with your audience or with your clients or whoever you're interacting with?
Mm. I think part of that is why God made me from Northern Ireland. We have a really strong, if I can say, BS radar. Like, if you're talking nonsense, we're pretty good for going, nah, that's not it. So I have a really strong sort of radar for and a strong dislike for dishonesty. I hate flattery because it's dishonest.
Mm.
I if you sing like a strangled goat, I'm never going to tell you you're a good singer. I might tell you that your shoes are gorgeous, or I love your necklace. I will find something that I can genuinely hand on heart stand over and go, that was beautiful. But I'm not, and I've been in that position, by the way. It was so unfortunate. And I really liked the girl. I really, really liked her. But I just, no, I want people to be able to trust my word.
Mm.
And, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, but I want, and my mom did a great job of this when I was dancing, because I would improvise in that. My mom said, even where I expected you to do, maybe your ballet solo, like, it was choreographed. I knew what you were supposed to do. She says, you would walk onto that stage and there'd be a look in your eye and I'd be like, oh Lord, here we go. She's like, I know you were just like, you'd gotten bored backstage and you're just throwing out the plan and just going to wing it. And so when I would do this and that, sometimes I would win. I won a lot as I was getting older. I was a bit of a lit bloomer on that front. But I won a lot, but there were ones where I didn't win. And my mom was always really honest with me. And she would go, well, to be fair, you robbed Sarah. Sarah should have had that, or you were robbed. And she was always really clear, and it was nothing about my worth. It was just what I did. That performance, you did not deserve to come third. Like, that performance, you definitely didn't deserve to win. Or that performance, you were robbed. Like, that score was ridiculous. You should have had, even if I won, no, I think it was worth more than that. So that honesty, it was such a trustworthy thing. I knew that regardless of what anybody else said, including the judges, my mom would give me an honest opinion, and there's such safety in that. Like, that is something that I want my clients to be able to feel safe. Like, they know that I will love the stink out of them, but they also know that I'll call them out. But I can do that because they know that I love the stink out of them. Right.
Yeah.
And when you know that people are for you and they're in your corner and they are rooting with everything in them for you, and when you can feel safe in that, it's a lot easier to take a compliment, because you know that it's not just empty words. Like, that you can bank it. It's real. That even if you don't agree, that person is speaking from their heart honestly. And that, so if it, I love the idea that I come across as who I am. Like, that makes me so happy, because that's such a big value for me. Part of that value then means why sometimes I'm not as prolific on social media as other people are. I mean, from the podcast, I am not prolific because it has to be real. I don't, here's the other thing. You cannot get time back, right? If I waste your time, there's nothing I can do to give that back to you, right? So for me, having people go through content that is worthless, that is just filling a space, satisfying an algorithm, that's wasting people's lives.
Mm.
Like, we don't have the right to do that. Yes, fine, they're responsible for what they consume, but I'm responsible for what I put out there. So when I put something
Yeah.
out there, I want it to be, at the very least, something that I feel passionate about, preferably something that, you know, I've got the Lord kicking my butt going, come on, get this out there. Like, this is, you know, burning a hole in you. Come on, you know, like, that's the stuff. Cause that's the stuff that, like, is impactful anyway. You know, that's the stuff that people can go, whoa, you know, I just got to download. Yeah. So that's that. that's where that comes from. That's what that's all about.
Yeah.
Important.
How important have mentorships, masterminds, coaching, those sorts of things, how important has that been in your journey?
Huge. From the get-go, the Lord has always put people around me, even informally, before I started having actual, you know, formal mentors and coaches and masterminds and what have you. Again, growing up, and when I went to dance college and whatever, you know, I went there when I was just 16, right? Moved country, so moved to just outside London, and lived in a house with like 13 other girls, a landlady, her husband, and their son, right? Huge house, but away from family, just turned 16, right? I had people from the church, like different churches I ended up in. God put people around me to keep me between the hedges. You know, I always had good counsel, whether I took it or not. I always had solid people that I could trust who would look out for me, you know, who'd give me Sunday dinner. You know, I always had that. And so that's always been a thing that I've known that I've benefited from. So fast forward into, you know, whether it was supervision and training for being a therapist, or, you know, every step since, that for me has always been a non-negotiable. Like, I need those people. And coming into business, it's like, right, you really, really, really need their expertise. You need that solid counsel. That was it, Proverbs 15:22. Hang on, I wrote it down because I was like, I'll massacre it if I try and quote it. Yeah. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. And that piece of having the people who will go toe to toe with you, because I'm a strong personality, and I'm really good at convincing people. Like, if I am on board for something, I can, you know, I can tell you this is all that in a bag of chips and getting people on board. That's not an issue. But I recognize that that's not always a good thing, because I'm human, right? So having people who will go, stand down, Kathrine, like, take a breath. That's ridiculous. You know, what are you thinking? You know, whatever it happens to be, you know, or you're overcomplicating things. Why not try this? Or the time's not right. You know, you need those people who will tell you the truth, you know, that you can trust their insight, their input, that where they're coming from, you know. And to me, it's a non-negotiable. And the funny thing is, the more successful I've become, the more people I bring in to advise and, you know, to run with me, as it were. So it's not even a case of, do I have coaches? Do I not? It's how many do I have? Like, who is anything I want to do that's, especially, you know, something that's a new way forward, who is coaching me on that? Right?
Yeah.
Who is helping me step into that? Who knows what I need to know? Who can help me avoid some of the pitfalls? You know, so for me, it's, yeah, non-negotiable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that ability to remain teachable throughout your life, I mean, it has to be there, or you're not going to keep growing.
100%. Yes, absolutely. And when you stop feeling like you can be teachable, you know, a lot of times where you take, you know, you have that, like, when somebody tries to coach you, it's a ding, 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 you know, red flag warning that your pride is getting in the way. Like,
yeah,
what is that? You know, is that person said something wrong, or that you're being a brat? and you need to, you know, be more teachable again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think hand in hand with that, like what you're kind of picking up on there is the I lost my word. Oh, insight, right? Insight into yourself
Yeah,
and evaluating your own reactions to things. Because
totally.
so many people just blow right past it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's got to be an intentional, okay, let me stop and think about, why did I react that way when so and so said whatever? You know, you've got to have that piece in it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's that intentionality.
Hmm.
I mean, to me, that's that piece, and I'm maybe skipping ahead, but in terms of being a good leader, that understanding of yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses, because it's not one or the other, it's both. You need to be able to see both sides of the coin, otherwise you're a liability. And understanding that you set the tone.
Hmm.
Behaviors are caught, not taught. Right? People, you know, that whole adage of do as I say, not as I do, that is nonsense. Nonsense. That's absolute steaming great pile of the smelly stuff. Like, forget that. No, people will catch your behavior. So what are you modeling for them? You're either doing it intentionally or incidentally. And either way, people are going to catch your behaviors. So as a leader, what are you modeling?
Hmm.
Are you working on being a better version of you, or are you sort of slapdash, yeah, whatever, anything goes? You know, what is acceptable? Where are you setting the boundaries? What are you bringing into this culture? Like that, you know, you can't do any of that without a solid dose of self-awareness, you know, and a big old dose of humility, because you're not always going to like what you see.
So true.
You know, and especially if you're walking with the Lord, you know, a lot of the people I work with don't share my faith, which, you know, so let me digress from my normal language to go a little bit on the faith front and go, like, if you're following the Lord, you are going to be pruned. It ain't going to feel fun at times. It's going to be humbling. That's a good thing. It's not going to feel good, but it's for your good. So, you know, suck it up, buttercup.
Oh my gosh. There's such a great lesson in that, though, that I mean, I think that really distinguishes people or separates people into, oh, when you see like how someone handles difficulty and trials, and do they find joy in the pruning?
Oof. Oof.
Ooh, like maybe that's a
That's a
whole
big
nother maybe that's a whole nother thing, but
yeah.
but that's what came to mind when you're talking about the pruning, you know, and the people who are humble and teachable and those have that insight that we've been talking about. I don't know that you welcome it necessarily, but it's, you know, you handle it with a different grace than someone who plays victim or blames or externalizes, right? And so I don't know if you want to say anything about that or not, but I just gonna throw that out there.
Well, I was sort of riffing off of it because what came to mind for me was the flip side of that is the experience that someone has when there's a potential conflict, right? So I'll give you an example, which is what came to mind, which is what I'm telling you, because it wasn't part of my plan. But I had someone yesterday who had signed up for a four-figure program, multi-four-figure program, and then came back to me and went, actually, I can. And the fear in this woman that she wasn't able to follow through. Now, it was one of those times where could I have coached her and said, no, this is not the attitude. Many people would have gone, no, this is a learning opportunity. You will rise to the challenge, yada, yada, yada. However, the discernment comes in looking at that person and going, what is best for that person right now? How would Jesus love that person? You know, I'm not looking at my bank balance. I'm not looking at what I plan to do with that money or any of that stuff, because that's irrelevant. That's not my business, really, right? God loves this person. In that moment, we get the opportunity to love her well and to not necessarily do things the way that it should be done in the business world where everything is about money. Right?
Yeah.
That woman had a different experience, not because I'm Jesus Jr., like not because I'm so holy, but because I've had the privilege of learning that it's not my place to worry about the money. My job as a follower of Jesus is to love people well. And given the circumstances that she laid out, the best way to love her was to bless and release. To, lift her up and encourage her for the future. Now you can say, oh, well, you're playing the long game. Sure, absolutely. She may come back around again. And if she does, I will celebrate that. Because what an achievement for her, to get to a point where actually she is able to do that without any, financial baggage. But that's the other side of it, isn't it? You're absolutely right that there's that piece of how does somebody experience like the grace and how we behave differently. But it's also not just witnessing how we've behaved differently, but how that has ramifications for them, whether they know the Lord or believe in the Lord or not, right? It's different from the world. It stands out. We should stand out. If we're kingdom business owners, we should stand out. Yeah. In good ways.
Yeah, we should be operating in that integrity to tell someone, I can't work with you right now.
Yeah.
Or say it however you need to say it, but that's essentially what it came down to, is you not, like you said, not looking at your bank account and going, I could easily get her in here and take her money.
Yeah.
Which so many other people would have done.
Right?
Yeah.
We had a contract. I could hold her to the contract. But for me, it was one of those moments where, the Lord, I really feel like the Lord was like, just love her, love her and release her with such dignity, the way you would want to be released, and cherished and honored. And so for me, it's like, I never want someone putting themselves into financial hardship to work with me. Like that's not, if the Lord wants you to work with me, I believe that it's his bank balance to sort out. Right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a strain on you, regardless of where you're coming from. I don't want you losing sleep so you pay me. God's never let me starve. Right? He wants me to run this business. He's going to send me the clients that can pay me.
Yep.
Right? Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I know we've already kind of danced all around this question, but I'll go ahead and ask it outright. What do you think makes a great leader?
Yeah, the humility, self-awareness. I've given this some thought. Yeah, the recognition that you don't know everything, and actually, a big thing is knowing that you're going to get things wrong, and that ability to fess up, to own it and do your darndest to get things right. See, for me, there's plenty of people who can model success, and I always say this there's my business clients I work with, but I also then have the doggy, the competitor clients. So when I'm working with dog trainers, one of the things that a lot of them wrestle with is that they feel like they have to be competitively successful in order to be seen as a good teacher, which they're two different skill sets. But what I say to them is, look, somebody who's coming to you for training, they already know that, they're giving you their money. They know you can train them, right? They know you can succeed. They know enough about your skills to have chosen to work with you. What they don't necessarily know is how to feel well, right? we don't know how to mess up and put things right. So again, it comes back to that intentionality. If you're a leader and you're able to take responsibility, you're not throwing other people under the bus, you're not trying to, point the finger at anybody else. You're going, it was me, it's my bad, I'll sort it out. And for me, that piece of like my clients in my membership, I swear that they look forward to me making mistakes because it always ends up to their benefit, right? Well, if something goes wrong, they know that they're going to get more than they were supposed to. Like it's going to be an extra scoop of ice cream type of thing,
Yeah.
And it's like, stop willing me to go wrong. I'm human. I can do that on my own. Thank you. But that piece, I think it's just so important that you that you model the behaviors you want other people to catch, which includes taking ownership and not beating yourself up. I don't care how good you are, you're gonna make mistakes. You're human. Cut yourself some slack because you're gonna free other people up to cut themselves slack as well. So that's what it's about for me.
Yeah. What is something that you think people misunderstand about you?
I think probably that I don't care what other people think. Like that's definitely one of them. And like there's one part of that that's really flattering. It feels really nice that comes across that I'm not like pandering, and that's great. But there's also a piece that I never want to be hard. I never want to be shut down to other people's experience. So that leaves a vulnerable edge. And I kind of, as much as it doesn't always feel good to have that sort of glance towards what other people think, I think it's actually important. I know it's not what the business gurus say you should do or anything like it, but I think it's so easy, and maybe this is just me knowing myself, I think it would be so easy to get hard, to get toughened up and to lose a little of the compassion, a little of the empathy, a little of the concern for other people. And I never want to do that, because other people matter. And again, I'm not always going to be right, much as I might like to be. So for me, I think sometimes that gets interpreted as I'm intimidating or I'm tough or I'm, I don't care what other people think. But there's very definitely a softer side to that. And to be fair, part of the intimidating or that is just this accent sounds intense. Doesn't matter what you do. I could be ordering a cup of tea and it's going to sound like I'm, Liam Neeson and Taken, I have a very particular set of skills. You know what I mean? We sound intense.
It's hard to say the most important skill, but what do you think is a important skill that someone would need to really master to sustain a successful business?
It is just being able to pick yourself up again and again. Because if anything you want to do in this life, it's going to require, like from you were a baby and you were learning to turn over, let alone learning to crawl. Like everything you've learned in this life, you have learned by messing it up, everything. You don't get to bypass failure. Like there's no road to success that bypasses failure. Not at all. There's plenty of one-way systems that go round and round and round again and again and again through failure before you spit yourself out the other side or get spit out the other side. But there's no way to bypass failure. So for me, like the dogged determination to keep going. And I don't mean that in being foolish or naive, but just that sense of it's part of the deal. It's okay. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow. If I'm going the direction I believe the Lord has me going, I'm being refined. I'm being equipped. I'm doing stuff along the way that has eternal ramifications. It's not just about the outcome. So that dogged determination to keep going. Because there will be days. I mean, I know I've sat in front of the computer and bawled like absolutely bawled my eyes out more than once. Let's be fair,
Yep.
quite a few times, you know, because it's just like, this is so hard. And yet when I go, well, you could give it up and walk away. It's like, no, it's what's on my heart. I'm just in a tough bit, you know, and when you keep going through that, guess what? You come out the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so vital that you recognize. I had a client tell me the other day, she was like, I'm just checking in with you, but I want to let you know, I recognize today is just a day.
Yes.
You know, like she was having a really hard time and she was like, I just need to say out loud to somebody,
Yes.
today is just a day. I'm not making any decisions today because I am not in a place to make them. Right. You know, and just recognizing that, having that insight of yourself of like, I know I'm going to keep going. I know I'm going to see this through, but in this moment, I need a moment, you know, I'm having a day.
Exactly. And I think that that's something that, you know, in the business world, we don't hear enough about. You know, when you see all these big programs of how to, you know, make $1 million before breakfast, as long as you get up at 5 o'clock and or, you know, have a team of 20 or whatever, you know, the system is that one needs to follow, the formula, roadmap, blueprint, whatever, whatever the snazzy term of the day is, you know, like we don't have enough about. Sometimes you're just a hot mess. Sometimes your hormones are all over the place. And the best thing you can do is go and have a chocolate bar and get back under your duvet and try again tomorrow. Like that's just it, you know?
Yeah.
That's, sorry, but you know, we've lost the sight of how much, like Jesus did a lot of napping, you know, if you look at it, Jesus took himself off into the wilderness. He had loads of God time on his own, away from people.
Yep.
We would say over here to get his head showered. You know, just take himself off. I've had enough of people. Like, we're done. give me 5, we'll be fine. You know, and like I love that. You know, when he's on the lake with the disciples and you know, they're freaking out because they think they're going to drown, and Jesus is in the back zetting it. You know, like that's our example right there. He's having a nap. You know, and we've kind of lost this pacing of walking with the Lord. You know, it's like, let me sprint with the Lord, you know, stand back, God, I've got it all under control, as I, you know, go to try and run a marathon at sprint speed. It's ridiculous. It's not healthy, and it sure as guns iron not kingdom. You know, so that piece of like, look, especially for us women, there are gonna be times where hormonally you are not at your best. Why on earth would we expect you to be consistent? I hate that word. Every day of the month, like we just know that that's not a thing.
Right. Yeah.
So every time we're trying to fit into that mold, we're not being who God made us to be in this season. Right? You're not operating in alignment, if you want to use that snazzy term, with where your body's at, the season of life you're in. And that's just one example, you know? Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I mean, that connects right back to where we started with the expectations of the gurus being white males, usually in America.
Yeah.
Like we will never be that. So you can accept it and do business with God your way, right? Your way, his way, together. You know, or you can try to fit yourself into this mold that we've been given that says this is what business should look like.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a choice.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that the risk is that when we're conforming to the shoulds and doing what has been prescribed as the way to do things, the world misses out on what the Lord put in us and the ways of interacting that the Lord put in us. the people that we can reach because we are different, because the idea of launching like that makes us want to punch a wall or eat a ton of chocolate. It can go either way depending on the time of the month. We were designed to be different. Like I love pondering, like, God, why did I need to be from Northern Ireland? Why did I need to be female? Why did you need to be American? Right? Why did you need to be female? Like, why did any of us need to be positioned where we were? Like, what is good? Or if you want to think of it a different way, what is the Lord using from from how we were positioned? Right? How does that make a difference? How does that open doors or, help somebody to relate to us that wouldn't if we'd been born elsewhere, if we sounded different, if we looked different? God cares about the details. He didn't just accidentally dip us in a tin of white paint before he sent us down.
Yeah.
He chose the kit. He chose what he was putting in us. He knit us together in our mother's wombs. Like, I don't think I'm stretching the point. We're fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
By God's design.
I feel something on that. Somebody needs to hear that. Absolutely. To embrace who you specifically were made to be and how your gifts enhance the world.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like you not being like somebody else is not detracting from anything. Like
no.
Oh man, that could be a whole nother. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It pretty
That's
much
a
ended up being
huge
the theme of the
topic.
book.
But yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we started out talking about 12-year-old Kathrine. Let's go back to her for a minute. And if you could go back in time, talk to her again, what would you say to her?
I would tell her to get excited. I would tell her that she has some wild adventures ahead. Like God has some crazy things planned for her. And I would say to her, like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you what's coming down the pipe. Like, you would not believe me for a second. But trust me when I tell you that the struggles you're going to go through, the tough times you're going to face, the horrible things, they are more than made up for by the incredible ways that God's going to show up and blow your mind. So take heart, dear one. There's good stuff coming.
Yes. And one of those good things is good for everybody. You have a book coming out that we will all get to enjoy. So tell us about your book.
Well, to be fair, actually, the theme of the book it comes out this November. And it really ended up being a book that was like, you matter, you were designed uniquely, embrace that. You are different by design, not by accident. And that it matters that you are different, and you're not broken, you're not a freak. Like all that juicy stuff that we've just been talking about is really one of the whole point of the book. And the phrase, if I can just share it, that came to mind talking about our uniqueness and our place in the fabric of history was, I really felt like when I was writing this piece about God going, you are a unique moment in history. You are a unique moment in history. There was never anyone exactly like you. There will never be anyone exactly like you. Just bathe in the deliciousness of being a unique moment in history. Like if you've never gotten how precious you are before, bathe in that. You're irreplaceable.
I'm just letting that sit for a second.
There.
Yeah. I mean, it's so incredible to think about. Uh, what was God thinking when he made me?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I could sit with that one. But that question of, just because so many people, like we've been saying, they go past their uniqueness. And when you ask that question, God, what were you thinking when you thought of me? And to get an answer like, you're a moment in history, like, what? It's just incredible. So incredible. I love that we're ending with this part, because that's absolutely what I want people to take away. If you don't listen to anything else, listen to this.
That's it. Yeah, get the last 30 seconds.
Yes. Your uniqueness is so important. It's so important. Well, Kathrine, thank you so much for being with us. This has just been, oh gosh, I could just keep going. I love just talking to you.
I love talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored to be part of your series. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I can't wait for your book to come out.
Looking forward to it.
We'll have all the links and everything in the description of the video for y'all to check out, where you can find Kathrine. I know is on Instagram at Dr. Kathrine, and I believe Facebook is the same as well. So y'all find her and ask her all the things, and continue the conversation. I know she would love to talk with you about it. So yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you want to learn more about me or any of my guests, all of the links are in the description below the video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share it on all your social pages. Until next time, remember that you have the power to multiply life without burnout.